Well, hi everybody. As you can see, I got a new webcam. I found it like everything else in my life. Kind of like it. Um, this was supposed to be a joyous occasion. It's been 2 years exactly since I was homeless for the first time after my narcissistic parents basically stalked me out of my apartment, sabotaged me out of my job. I mean, more or less, destroyed my life after they killed my brother by sabotaging him, and he had a heart attack the next day. Well, it's been 2 years. I've come a long way. There's no doubt about that. I've gotten I've gotten my life back in order. I've gotten my brains back. I mean, I couldn't even think for a year. But I'm going to tell you something that happened. I can't believe it. It's like, I'm telling you something. Once you know enough about narcissism, you can predict the future. I mean, you can predict what narcissists are going to do and what might happen. A lot of what I figured out about my parents and about, well, not so much about my ex-girlfriend, the psychopath. She really was a new template for me. I didn't know anything. She was the first person I figured out. But after I figured her out, everything else and everybody else fell into place because of the similarities between them, between everybody's stories on the internet, between all the professionals giving advice. I mean, it really does fit like a puzzle. Okay, so when I first discovered that my father was a pedophile, and the reason that my mother was trying to get me to work for my father and sabotaging my life and my relationships, why she was trying to keep me a loser working for my father, was because a long time ago there was a decision made by my grandmother that that's the way it's going to be. They're going to use the second child as a scapegoat. Um, though the second child will work for the father, and there'll always be an excuse why the father is not there. Now, I say it generically, I say the father and not me, because when I first discovered it, I said, well, who else knew? And right away, there was two names came to. I mean, there was two people. One is a cousin. They're both cousins. One is a first cousin. One is a second cousin. The first cousin is obviously gay, in the closet, and everyone knows it. And he doesn't have any children. And although he was a vicious bastard towards me at the end, when they were trying to exile me from the family, basically, instead of explaining what happened after my brother died, they didn't need me anymore. They just wanted to get rid of me. So they were all acting very rude to me at the last get together. It was disgusting what they did. So him, forget about him. He's just garbage as far as I'm concerned. The second cousin has a whole family. And I started to think about him, and I said, you know what? I think he's gay also. I mean, the guy works out in the. He works out. He's like 65. He still looks the buff. I mean, it doesn't make sense. He's been married for what, 30 years. I know guys, straight guys. You work out till you get your woman, and then you kind of like let yourself go after a while. You don't keep going. And he's just always a little bit strange. I mean, a good guy. I have nothing against him. I've always liked him, but I've always found like he's tried too hard a bit, just like my father. A little bit too macho. Well, then it struck me that his son worked for him, and I said, "Oh my God!" And I thought maybe I should, because I was trying to think who in the family I should tell this to, who else is being affected by this narcissism, and that son, I didn't even know his name or who he was really. They kept me apart because they didn't want us to talk. So although I should know him very well, I don't know him at all. The fact that my father and this second cousin are best friends and their kids don't know each other is very suspicious. So I was very concerned about this fellow, thinking he's working for him. I said, my God, maybe he fell for it. I always had computers and I was always able to fight back. Maybe this guy got suckered in. Maybe he's a borderline also. Maybe he's suffering. Well, I never found out because, or I did find out, unfortunately. It's almost like I predicted it. 2 days ago, I was watching videos on borderline because that's obviously a problem I deal with. It's a big problem. I can't seem to overcome the inner critic, and I can't seem to overcome the rage. But overall I've gotten a lot better, but still. And I was there talking about self-sabotage, and they were discussing the various forms of self-sabotage possible. Alcoholism, gambling, drug addiction, overeating, anorexia, bulimia, cutting. There's a whole bevy of possibilities. The only one that resonated with me at the time, I was thinking, the time was 2 nights ago, I was thinking it's just the drugs. That's always been my thing. When I need to escape, or I reach a point of explosion, I do stimulants usually. So usually it was ecstasy for many years, or LSD, psychedelics, and lately it's been amphetamines, since they keep me kind of normal. They keep me myself. They don't trip me out, right? But then I realized, oh no, I was also a dangerous driver. I don't drive anymore. I let my license go. My parents sold my car behind my back. I mean, they gave it to me, but then they sold it when they moved to Florida. And now I know why, because they didn't want me to have a life. So, but I remember, oh my God, I was a dangerous driver. That's probably another one that I may have, gotten away with because I don't have a car. I mean, maybe it's a good thing I didn't have a car. And wouldn't you know it, that cousin who I spoke about, who I did not know his name, who I was thinking, oh my God, he's in the situation my parents wanted me to be in, with a father who's probably in the closet, and this guy probably doesn't know, and he probably has borderline tendencies because of it. He's probably the scapegoat. Sure enough, probably was the scapegoat because he was driving a motorcycle, which seems like a rebel kind of thing to do. And he was driving dangerously at 3 a.m. in the morning, Friday morning. It's basically yesterday morning, early in the morning. And he burnt a red light. And he crashed headfirst into a van. And the occupants of the van were fine, not even injured. And he's dead. 26 years old. Another one down. Another one down. I mean, there's not a person in that family now who's screaming and crying and miserable, who knows what he died from. But I know he died from a borderline tendency of self-sabotage. To drive your motorcycle at 3 in the morning right through a red light. It's the kind of stuff I used to do when I was younger. I used to drive and I was venting. And now he's dead. And it's like, there's part of me that thinks, I mean, I sent a condolence. It's the first time I broke no contact. I sent it on the internet through the system, that legacy.com, where the obituaries stand. And I was thinking about going to the funeral, but I quickly decided against that. I mean, not only do I not want to break no contact with my family, not only did I burn a lot of bridges with them, but this man, this guy I'm telling you about, he actually turned on me. I mean, he was vicious towards me, just like the cousin. And I'm thinking, in a way, what would Macintosh say, SM Macintosh, that God paid this guy back. He took his son away because he had some nerve, obeying my father, going along with it, and acting the way he did towards me at that last event, which was his mother's birthday, his mother's 75th birthday. I show up, and everyone's giving me the cold shoulder, and they're being cruel to me, and they're just trying to ostracize me. Now, after this guy and his wife came up to me and tried to console me because they knew what was going on, but I just pushed them away and just said, you don't know what you're talking about. At the time, I didn't know that they knew exactly what I was talking about. But in the end of the day, they never made it clear they were following my father's sick ruse. And as a result, or just as a result, that they were exactly like my father, their son is dead too now. I mean, luckily for his brother, because he has a brother just like me, 2 years apart, he also has a sister, so he won't be left totally alone. But, I'm pretty sure this guy was the scapegoat, the black sheep. He You know, he didn't have a girlfriend. It appeared, well, his brother in the obituary mentioned a wife and a child. So, you know, riding a motorcycle, working for his dad. It sounded exactly the way my father wanted me. And then they would have been happy if I died too along the way. So the whole thing is just really sick. And I'll put a link in the bottom of this. You can see what's left of my cousin. You know, I didn't get to know him, but you'll have a good look at him, and you'll realize how sad it all is. You know that you know the family must be just going crazy because it happened again. I mean, my brother was 44. We thought that was young, and this guy was 26, and these are the only two people who have died. You know, and I'm telling you, my brother had also borderline tendencies. He was a narcissist, but he was a narcissistic borderline. He didn't manipulate. He didn't play games. He was just a real loudmouth. He was like a bit of a Donald Trump in a way, you know, overt narcissist. He was a comedian. He was a stand-up comedian. It was part of his act as well. So you know, it fit him. And he wasn't a bad guy. He was a great guy. He didn't have he wasn't malevolent. So I don't think he was narcissistic. He was borderline with narcissistic tendencies. Anyhow, both of them are dead now, and I'm almost wondering who's next. You know, it's not going to be me. Anyways, have a look below to see the results of living with the cluster B family and what my cousin looks like today.